Hello everybody and welcome. My name's Ketchup, joined by Mustard as always, and I'd like to introduce you once again to the Mortal Kombat 11 final round, which is, if you've watched these before, our regular show that we do alongside the MK11 Open series here, where we pick players' brains, we have interviews, we have breakdowns of game mechanics and all this other good stuff. And all around, if you're a big fan of Mortal Kombat 11, it's the show to watch. And as always, we have quite the show lined up today.
And a fun show it's shaping up to be indeed, as this is going to be the episode of MK2eZ, one of our more regular faces in the North American side of the Open Series, as he's been with us from week number 1 and now, all these months later, continues to be a regular face. We'll be starting off with an interview with him, talking about his experience in the Open Series and his journey with Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat as a franchise competitively, as he has been around for a few years. And then he will be joining us for today's classroom session, where we will be talking about the intricacies of meter management, this very basic mechanic that has so many applications competitively and little ways that can help you optimize your gameplay, in the words of a competitive player.
So, I think it's about time that we introduce the guest for today, MK2eZ. We've seen you all over the place, not just in Open Series, but competitive MK11 all year round and even last year. And not just MK11, but other NRS titles too. Starting off with the first question, really, and this is something I've wanted to ask you for a while. You have been known to be able to juggle multiple tournaments at the same time. You've never been shy of getting involved in any online competition you can get your hands on. And I've always wanted to know, what is it that really drives you to be as hungry as you are as an online player?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a competitor at heart. So, like on the side of things, like for MK, you have content creators, you have people that do a bunch of different stuff. For me, I take competing the priority. It's the most important for me. So when there's different opportunities, if I have the time, if I can make time for it, I put it on the schedule, make sure I attend, whether it's an online or offline tournament.
That's really good. And I do respect that a lot because, especially with MK11 and the amount of avenues players have to, I think, get creative with how they compete. It's always good to see you in the bracket because you're a mainstay name here in the online realm. But Mustard, what's next?
You have been one of the most kind of consistent names in the Open Series across the Monday tournaments and then the top 8 themselves. How has your journey been with the Open Series? Now we're going into, month 5 right now and beyond. You've definitely been a consistent top 8 player, and that really is the main point. What do you think it really is, your consistency in the Open Series? Where does that come from?
Well, I feel like even since year 1 of MK11, I've been grinding a lot, basically. And I feel like that's just, it shows that, I'm pretty consistent now, getting the top 8s in ESL because of just the time I've put in the game. So my knowledge is there.
I mean, knowledge will give you all kinds of edges, won't it? Those small little matchups, and especially with the characters, the wide variety of them that we see.
That is true. That is true. We've seen every single character in the game in the Open Series at least once. It's crazy.
And on that note, I've got to ask, of all the characters that you've faced, who has been your absolute toughest adversary and why?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty obvious. I would definitely say Unjust is pretty much untouchable. This is his realm. He's pretty much untouchable. And he uses so many characters, so it's pretty stressful to fight him. In regards to characters, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty free to Garrus and other Sub-Zeros. Those are my weaknesses. I don't know why. I automatically lose to any other Sub-Zeros, and then also Garrus is he's always been, even with the nerfs, I still he's been my weakness forever.
What I find really fascinating and interesting is you've been successful. You've been in grand finals. You've been able to take it to players like Biohazard you've beaten in the past. But Unjust is that consistent problem. As a player that is always here, how do you feel your attitude helps you when it comes to playing when there are tournaments with players that dominant? How does that affect you as a player when you can see that challenge all the time?
Well, personally, I love it. I like it when I know that I have someone that's quote unquote a stronger player or someone that's really reckoned to go against. I love the challenge, so it kind of motivates me. I like knowing that, I might get cooked here. I might lose to this guy, so I gotta really bring my A game.
And that's memorable, right? You think some of the more memorable matches we've had in Open Series were those kind of scenarios where a player who is seen to be a favorite doesn't take it and loses to someone else, whether it's a surprise character pick.
Oh, hang on a minute. So we're not going to see Fuji, but we are going to see a different DLC character and Spawn.
Whether it's Hidden Cursor paying off, and that does lead itself to some of the most highlight moments, I think.
Right, I agree.
Now, I guess it's kind of funny you should mention that, Mustard, because, I mean, my next question here, 2eZ, is you've been in this for a long time, and since this has started, no surprise, you were right in there in the top 8. Do you have any specific moments in Open Series so far that you would say are your fondest memories? Do you have any highlight moments?
One of my favorite moments in Open Series. Oh, I gotta dig in the vault here. I mean, definitely.
Don't want to put you on the spot.
The first one would definitely be Biohazard, because Biohazard is definitely a sweat.
This was a one-sided game. Biohazard completely unable to really get onto 2eZ's rhythm.
You know what really impressed me is this. Ice Scorpion is a player that really came out of nowhere, and he's been. I feel like every time I see him on the Open Series, he's leveling up a lot.
Oh, and there it is, 3-0 Ice Scorpion.
I like seeing the come-ups. I like seeing the stories of, somebody that is not as good, and then you get to see them rise up to dominancy.
If there was a player right now who wanted to get competitive with Mortal Kombat 11, what is the main stuff they should think about?
Right. Well, the first thing that I would tell them is keep in mind everything right now is online. So there's certain characters that are really prevail and are really strong online. So I would automatically suggest online characters. For example, I would say Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Aaron Black, Jackie Briggs. Jackie Briggs is good whenever, but yeah, I would refer them to those characters that are really good online.
Would you say that characters are the most important part of the high-level game right now, or are there other elements that I think really make a top player a top player? What are those ingredients, no matter the character, what are the kind of skills that makes a top player in Mortal Kombat 11?
Just solid fundamentals. You gotta have good neutral, good understanding of matchups. So knowledge, good neutral, footsies, spacing, execution for sure. Online is sometimes the execution is a little harder. There's some combos that are harder to do online compared to offline. So yeah, execution. Those are all really important things I feel that make you a top level player if you have everything checked out.
So we have talked briefly about character choice and how it kind of shapes up into the game itself, but let's talk about your characters for a second. You are a player that we've seen with quite a solid team of characters. Like, would you say it's fair to say the kind of the Sub-Zero, Shang Tsung, and Scorpion really are the three we've seen the most? What is it about that team that drew you to them?
Well, first of all, those characters are just sick in general. Those are like
agreed.
Agreed.
100% agreed.
And actually, they have in my opinion, they have the best skins right now in the game. So I'm always trying to change up the style. That's important. I like looking good. So those three characters have really good
customization
skins.
is a thing. We're playing online. There's no random gear at tournaments. You play what you want to look like. It's great.
Exactly. We gotta look good. Yeah. So when I started out, I just went all Sub-Zero. I'm like, yo, this character looks pretty cheap. So I grinded out with Sub-Zero. Then I ran into a couple of matchups where I'm like, okay, this is not fun. I'm trying to win here, right? So then I picked up Scorpion. I'm like, wow, Scorpion actually does really good here. So then I have the duo, Scorpion Sub-Zero, Bam Bam doing pretty good. And then Shang Tsung was beautiful. I loved, oh my god, the DLC. When I saw Ermac, because I'm a really big Ermac player, okay, let's say I'm a main Shang. He got some nerfs.
Closest you get to Ermac. Unfortunately, right now.
No, hopefully we'll see. I'm still waiting on it, but
fingers crossed.
Never know.
Yeah, so that's basically how I made my main playlist of characters. Was kind of just I started out with one character and then I branch off when I need to.
So that actually does bring me on to my next question, and it's in the same kind of realm, character-wise, but is this where we think your characters are going to stay, or are you always looking to play new ones?
We're always looking for DLC. We're looking for a Mac, of course. Man,
of course, I remember.
And if Cyrex comes, I'm maining Cyrex. So
yes,
looking at you.
Yes,
we're gonna main.
He knows what he is doing. So my final question is alluding earlier to what you said about, online characters are a thing right now. Specifically speaking, when you say a character is a bit more online friendly, what are those specific mechanics to the game or the way the game is played that online might help?
Well, I'm gonna be pretty straightforward with you. The main one I would say is mashing. You know, those people that they press a button, but they don't want to give up their turn. They wanna continue, even though on paper they're not supposed to get their turn back. They're allowed to just because of the delay and the online scenario where it allows situations like that to happen. Another thing, also, I would say combos. So, for example, let's see with Sub-Zero in the corner, right? I like to usually do like after a jump kick, I'll do a standing 4 into a 2-2-2 combo, right? And with a cushion blow. But online, it's a little bit harder. So I'll just, after the jump kick, I would just proceed with a standing 2 instead of the standing 4, because it's harder to hit online and it's less consistent.
Yeah, I really think it is an important thing, though, playing to that environment. Even though, you know, the netcode is good for MK11, there is that kind of built-in 3-frame of input delay, which might not seem like much, you know, to the naked eye, but when you play a lot of especially if you transition from a lot of offline to a lot of online, there definitely is that change. And, you know, it's just like you said, being able to be versatile and playing to the environment really is important. No, it's a really good point.
So that is the end of the interview with you, 2eZ, but we're not finished with you just yet. It is my pleasure now to introduce the next section of Final Round, which is our classroom session, where we're going to dive into meter management. Now, our next portion of this show is our classroom session, where we always invite a player in, we discuss an important element of Mortal Kombat 11 and something that we can take a bit of a more deep dive into mechanically. And this week is no exception. It is, as we've said before, going to be about meter management, the offensive and defensive bars, and the fact that it's something we haven't really touched on too much in these episodes, and that does change today. It's an important part of the game. MK11 does introduce a unique element of the regenerating meters on both sides, but to prevent things from getting too complicated early, I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of 2eZ and Mustard for a bit more of a pro player insight. So, when you're ready, take it away, folks.
Thanks very much. So I think the most important thing to talk about early on is a very brief description of what the meters are. For those of you that may not be too aware, there is a offensive bar and a defensive bar. They're in, you know, they have 2 blocks each, and they're in the corner of where it is you're playing with your player 1 or player 2. And different attacks will spend them in different ways. For example, a breakaway will cost 2 bars of defensive meter. Most of your wake-up options are tied to it in some way, with wake-up roll costing a bar of defense, and the wake-up attack, whether it's an up 2 or an up 3, will cost a bar of each. And then amplifying special moves will typically cost 1 bar of attack. But we're not just talking about the meters today. We're talking about competitively in high-level games, how managing the meter is so important. So 2eZ, you're a competitive player. You've played countless games in tournament for MK11 already. How important to your general game plan would you say the meter is?
Well, properly managing your meter can decide whether if you win or not. So it's extremely important.
And I feel like there is a lot of reasons to that, right? When you knock someone on the floor, you can see they have to play around the wake-up system. Quickly analyzing how much bar they have will be the difference between whether you get to continue your pressure or whether they get the chance to hit you back. 2eZ, when you've knocked someone on the floor and you're looking at their bar, what are specific options that you are looking for?
Basically, one of the main things I look at is if they have any defensive meter. So if they don't have any defensive meter at all, then they're basically stuck. If they don't have any offensive meter, then that means that they're unable to wake up 2 or up 3. So all these things, after you play for so long, you automatically do it in your head. Like it's like a check mark. My option's set. Oh, I'm gonna hit him with a meaty move. So that's a couple of things I do.
That really is an important point, right? Making sure it becomes second nature, that you're just, you know, you can quickly look down, see what they've got, and play around accordingly. But then that kind of takes me into my next example is the breakaway mechanic. So when would you say is the best time to use the bar on a breakaway, and when it's a good time to just accept the damage and not break away?
I would say usually at the start of the match. Let's say like the round just starts and you get opened up. I would say just keep your meeting, take the damage, accept that you messed up and you just were out positioned. Because if you're able to take the damage and have your defensive options ready to go for the next turn. But I would say that you definitely need to break away if it'll prevent you from losing. Obviously, breakaway system helps you avoid losses because it'll let you survive a combo.
And that actually almost is, funnily enough, we're talking about meter management. The health bar is technically a meter, right? the health bar is technically a meter.
Yeah, technically.
But that also takes me on to the next point of meter, which is spending it for enhanced attacks or amplified attacks. What circumstances would you say it's worth spending all of the offensive bar? And when would you say it's worth being more reserved?
I'll definitely use the 2 bars if I know it's going to kill my opponent. But other than that, I usually just like to opt for better plus frames on Oki. You have to know which combo routes you can take so you make sure you don't get punished. And also knowing how to spend the 2 bars if you need to secure the win.
This is actually a mistake that I see a lot of players make on their kind of like learning the higher level of the game, is spending bar when they don't need to in that kind of sense. One instance that I think spending, amplifying a move and spending bar isn't really a problem is when the round is about to end. Because you have to remember, the bar comes back automatically, but it doesn't pause in between rounds. So if you end round 1 by spending bar, it's pretty much back by the time the next round begins because of that in between. So meter management is more than just spending it to attack, spending it to survive. It's very possible to spend it wrong and potentially take a huge risk. And I actually feel like the real example of this is Aftermath onwards, something we see a lot. The introduction of armor breaks has meant that breakaway is something that you can't universally rely on to. I've been launched, don't worry, I can break away and I'll be fine. When would you say you're looking for that the most when it comes to spending defensive bar on the breakaway?
I would definitely say you have to just notice your opponent's bar if they can even break away to begin with. So let's say you juggle your opponent, right? You hit him with a nice down 2 crushing blow. Okay, from there, if your opponent has a breakaway, you have to keep in mind, because there's some combo routes where you could implement your breakaway option but still be safe if they don't break away. So that's kind of a thing where like combo routes is really important, and also just noticing your opponent's meter to have the ability to break away.
So one thing that I think really has been the most consistent point to be brought up here in meter management really has just been the awareness. It might be tricky at first, but it's definitely worth putting the time in to do, because you'll be surprised as once you start looking at that bar and you're aware of what it can be spent on in that situation, it's going to impact your game exponentially. And that does bring us to the end of this classroom segment. I'd like to thank you very much, 2eZ, for taking the time out today to hang out with us and chat about whether it's the interview, whether it's the meter management in the game, and I hope we see you much more in the future. But before we let you go, are there any shout outs you'd like to make?
Yeah, of course. Big shout out to Simplicity Esports. They've been really supporting me even throughout this this hard time, with everything going on in the world. So big shout outs to them. Hashtag keep it simple, hashtag go FLA. Big shout outs to my Florida boys, my Seattle boys. I travel between Seattle and Florida a lot, so I'm neutral. I can't pick, but I've been a Florida boy forever, So that's pretty much about it.
And that is, unfortunately, all we have time for this episode of Final Round. I would like to extend a thank you once again to 2eZ for joining us and really giving us his competitive insight. Invaluable information, as always, for these kind of shows. Thank you, Mustard, for joining me. And remember, for you lovely people at home, if you want to play yourself, go to compete.playstation.com. It is all done through the competition center and your PS4. It's a self-explanatory and easy process to compete in Open Series. And if you want to play and you are of one of the eligible regions, there's nothing stopping you. Thank you one more time for joining us. This has been Final Round, and Mustard and myself will see you in the next episode.
PlayStation